Hi, Acadiana. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Let's talk tropics as we start hurricane season on this June 1st. I'm out here at Sycamore Point out at the boat launch. A lot of folks are enjoying a beautiful day here with a lot of sunshine and temperatures in the 80s. But of course, hurricane season is getting started. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on right now, what we're expecting for the hurricane season, plus a few safety tips here as we get toward the end. But I did want to show you what a beautiful day it is out here at Sycamore Point. That's looking out toward the bay as you look out toward the boat launch. And again, there's a lot of folks out here. A lot of people are out boating, trying to enjoy what a beautiful day that we have here for the first day of June. Some comfortable conditions and some low humidity. We do have some showers and thunderstorms on the radar back to our northwest, but I don't think that's going to be too many problems for us over the next couple of days as we've got more of a ridge of high pressure in place. But that is going to bring a few widely scattered showers. And we've got more of a trough that's going to be digging out in the west as we head toward the middle part of the week. As far as winds and seas today, it's really a very nice day. That's probably why there are so many boaters out here. Very light winds currently, and those seas are only running about 1 to 2 feet. Looking out in the Gulf, we've got that frontal boundary that's still draped out there. And of course, this time of the year is where we would normally see the possibility of tropical development over the Gulf along an old frontal boundary. And that's usually where our tropical development happens during the early part of the hurricane season. But as of now, we're not expecting anything in the Gulf, at least for the next week or so. And the Gulf, or rather the Central American satellite is looking okay as well. We're in good shape there where we've got just some rains that are continuing to move across Central America and then pushing off toward the west, or rather the east. The Caribbean Sea is very quiet right now. And looking out in the main part of the Atlantic Ocean, we've got a lot of Saharan dust out there. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on here, but there is a bit of a tropical wave that's kind of worked its way off toward the west, off of the African coastline, and we do think we're going to be seeing that just kind of drifting off toward the west and probably won't bring too many issues out there over the next 24 hours or so. So as far as the National Hurricane Center is concerned, we're not expecting any tropical cyclone activity here for the next 7 days. But wanted to talk a little bit about the frequency of tropical systems during the early part of the season. As you can see, there's really not a lot of action during the month of June or July, and things really start to ramp up as we get into August. But usually those early, top of the list names, Andrea, Barry, a lot of times those do affect areas across the Atlantic Basin during the month of June. So usually the higher end of that alphabet list there. And of course, you can see the entire alphabet of the names that we're going to be using for the 2025 season. Usually we have our first name system by about the third week in June or so. There are some indications on a couple of models that we might see something a little bit earlier than that. But again, at this point, it's only one model that's talking about that. But you can see the progress of the hurricane season. Usually we get into the third and fourth one there in August, where typically we would have 4 named storms and 4 again during the month of September, 3 in October, 1 in November. And then of course there's your hurricanes and major hurricanes. Remember last year we had Hurricane Beryl that became a major hurricane well ahead of schedule there toward the end of June and the early part of July. One of the strongest hurricanes on record, and also one of the earliest Category 5s we've ever had on record in the Atlantic Basin. But if you want to talk about where normal development will be across the Atlantic Basin, generally the Gulf of Mexico and the Yucatan Channel, those are kind of your higher areas where you're going to see the possibility of development, and a lot of times that does come along an old front. And the same goes for the East Coast, stretching from the Carolinas down to the Bahamas. That's another hot spot where we typically see some development during the early part of the hurricane season. Also, a lot of times dealing with a front that kind of stalls there over the southeast. And then we also have the Central American Gyre that spins there over Central America and can occasionally throw a low northward there through the Yucatan Channel. Water temperatures are plenty warm for any kind of tropical development here across the Gulf, the Caribbean, and even in the Western Atlantic. And those waters will continue to warm farther out into the Atlantic Ocean, especially as you get into August and September, closer to Cape Verde season. Now, I showed you the National Hurricane Center's 7-day outlook, but we also look at the Global Tropic Hazards Outlook, and that kind of gives us week 2 and week 3. So going into the second week of June, it looks like we're going to be okay, but at least this one, and then again, this graphic updates once a week, so it updated last week. We'll get another update on Thursday, but it is showing that maybe that second going into third week of June, where we could see a little bit of activity, maybe trying to fire up over the Bay of Campeche over the Gulf or the Gulf of Honduras over the western part of the Caribbean. Also want to talk about La Nina and El Nino. And last year we were in El Nino, kind of cruising our way toward a La Nina season, but La Nina didn't really get as strong as what the forecast models were showing. So even though we had a ramp up of tropical activity there toward the end of the hurricane season, we still fell a little bit below, a little bit short of what some of the big time predictions were during the preseason of the hurricane season. Now, this time around, the El Nino, La Nina, the model predictions are pretty much keeping us right there in the neutral zone, which does make it a little more difficult to determine whether you're going to have an above normal or a below normal season, because when you have a La Nina influence, which is what we were expecting last year, typically you get more hurricanes in the Atlantic basin and fewer in the Pacific. And the reason is the trade winds, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in the El Nino situation, you have the opposite effect. So since we are looking at the neutral, again, all bets are off. We could continue to see tropical systems developing both in the Atlantic as well as the Pacific. But when you have La Nina in place, you have less vertical wind shear, and therefore the systems that are trying to get developed are able to develop a lot easier because they don't have that crosswind, that wind shear. But when you have El Nino in place, you typically have a little bit more vertical wind shear, and that makes it a little bit harder for tropical systems to develop in their earlier stages. Doesn't have a whole lot of effect once they become full-fledged tropical systems, but what we're looking at is the ability to be able to develop, whether it's a hostile area or a non-hostile area. And a lot of times that El Nino, La Nina does take into effect of what our tropical season is going to look like over the next several months. Right now, though, there's tons of wind shear across the Gulf, the Western Caribbean, and then going out into the development zones that are east of the Leeward and Windward Islands. So at this point, it's going to be tough for any tropical systems to try to develop here over the next several days. Second thing that's a big problem when it comes to tropical development is the Saharan dust. And there's a lot of that too coming off the African continent, moving all the way across the Atlantic Ocean and continuing to move into the Caribbean. And a lot of this is actually moving into the Gulf too. So that will suppress any tropical development here over the next week or so. But I did want to review some of the early season forecasts here. Colorado State puts out their forecast, and they're predicting above average activity this year with 17 named storms, which is a little bit lower than last year. So they're still kind of taking into consideration that we're going to be in that neutral zone. Plus, the last several years we've seen above average activity. And then on top of that, you got some pretty warm water temperatures out there. And NOAA also releasing their hurricane season outlook very close to what Colorado State, showing a 60% chance that there'll be an above normal season, with just a 10% chance that there would be a below normal season. And of course, named storms 13 to 19, that's right in the ballpark at about the same of what Colorado State is showing. And pretty much all of the early season storms, or all the early season predictions here, or forecasts, are showing slightly to moderately above average activity here as we go through the next several months. Meanwhile, let's look at the next 10 days as we kind of show you the global models. At this point, there's not much going on out there, although the GFS model for a while was trying to pull something into the eastern part of the Gulf. And this latest model is also showing a bit of a low trying to develop there over the Bay of Campeche, or rather the Yucatan Peninsula into the Yucatan Channel. Now, remember, that is a typical area where you would see development during the month of June. So even though not likely here over the next 10 days, that would be a pretty typical setup for the early part of the hurricane season. Euro, though, had a blip out in the Gulf maybe about 3 days ago, but it really isn't showing a whole lot out there right now. So at this point, there's no agreement in any of the global models that would show any active tropical weather here over the next 7 to 10 days, is even the ICON model just showing kind of a frontal boundary out there. So if the Central American Gyre can get going and we get a front to stall there over the southeastern Gulf, that would be the area where we would most likely see any tropical development. But right now, that does not look very likely at this point. So what can you do in the early part of the hurricane season? Of course, you can get a lot of things ready right now. Batteries, flashlights, water, non-perishable food. Make sure you got a first aid kit, know where your medicine is, personal hygiene, cleaners. These are all things that you can have on hand right now before any tropical weather comes in our direction. Make sure you got your IDs, insurance, important papers, and you can save those as digital. Makes it a lot easier. And make sure you got a basic tool set entertainment for kids, and also your pet supplies when it comes to hurricane season. Now, a week before, when we've got something that is threatening the area, you're going to have two plans. One, are you going to stay? One, are you going to go? And make sure you secure your home and start to move things inside. You can top off the tanks at that point. Maybe make reservations if you're planning on leaving, and make sure you alert family outside of the storm zone of your plan and also your neighbors too. And when you're just a few days out and it does look like a tropical system or a hurricane is going to be affecting us, grab those last minute supplies such as ice and food. Choose two different evacuation routes if you're going to be leaving town, and make sure you check on your neighbors and know their plan as well, and then put your plan into action. Again, that's just a few days out, and hopefully we're going to be able to give you a long time's worth of notice before any tropical weather starts to come in our direction. Of course, I want you to continue to watch Let's Talk Tropics. You can also subscribe to my channel and also like this video and turn on those notifications. Plus, you can also hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And also follow my social media pages for updates on any tropical weather or severe weather day and night on Facebook and X. And also thanks to the 36 or 3,700 subscribers right here on Acadiana Weather Today, and enjoying some of these forecasts each morning, and also the tropical weather outlook that's going to be live every day at noon right here on Acadiana Weather Today. Well, again, I hope you enjoy Acadiana Weather Today. Is trying to put this little umbrella here over so we can get a little bit of a better shot, but it is a beautiful day out here at Sycamore Point, and hopefully the rest of hurricane season stays nice and quiet, just like this beautiful day here on June 1st. Again, get ready for hurricane season. We'll be watching everything, and Let's Talk Tropics will be live at noon each and every day right here on YouTube. So I hope to see you then. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Have yourself a great Sunday afternoon.